We're doing the same as thousands of other people. We're no different. Other managers and executives and their wives have to put up with it. You should have to put up with it. Don't nag. Home life became really a buggerance factor. It was a necessary, occasional distraction. My main priority, my main mind was focused constantly on work. And anything that came up at home, anything that came up that needed repairing or needed some attention and so forth, it got put on the back burner to be fitted in with the job, to be fitted in with the priorities of my boss, to be fitted in with the priorities of people I didn't particularly like. But gradually, a voice inside me started to talk. I began to doubt and I began to question. I don't recall now how long it was and when it was. It was at least 12 months before we ever saw this business. Now, this doubting voice I didn't share with my wife. Very few of us share our voice inside us anyway. That's something that talks to us and we don't necessarily share it with other people. A macho man here wasn't certainly going to go home and tell Greta that maybe I'd been working for a company for all these years and maybe it was a mistake. Slowly things began to change at work. More profit was demanded because more acquisitions had been made by the company. They were expanding. They wanted to stretch things as much as they could. They asked me to seek and make more sacrifices, manage with less staff, pay less wages whenever possible, use people more and use people as much as I could without rewarding them properly. But that was the name of commerce, and that sometimes is how things are today anyway. They took on a program of recruitment and they recruited many people from the service industries, from the supermarket field and places like that, to become managers of these various sites. And they gave me the responsibility for training them. Now, in those days, there was a power struggle going on in the company. The marketing manager and the managing director were having conflict, and each had his favorite people that he wanted to introduce into the company. And what happened next illustrated to me really how they were prepared to use and sacrifice people. Someone was recruited to fill a particular post, and the person that was recruited was the favorite man of the general manager, not the marketing manager, the managing director. Now, he just chose this guy to get back at the other director in the company, and he gave me this man to train. And the man was very nice, but completely unsuitable for the particular job. They moved this man down to the southern areas. His wife had to give up work and his children had to give up school. He had to sell his house and he moved down south. And I said to the managing director, he's unsuitable, it won't work. Nice man, but it won't work. He said, train him. He said, if he's no good after 6 months, we'll just dump him and get rid of him. And so I went on training the man, and the man got interested in the job, but was, as I say, completely unsuitable. And one day the manager had had his will. He'd beaten his opponent. He called me into his office and he told me to sack the man. And I think that was the first time I'd ever seen a man cry, because this man had destroyed completely his past. He's uprooted himself. He got nothing left. His wife was unhappy. His children were still not settled in the school. He'd lost virtually everything, and here he was, dumped onto the rubbish heap. And I often wonder today what happened with that man. But that basically sent me some very, very strong messages. Other things were beginning to happen. Redundancies became quite a thing in the economy. More and more people were being made redundant. A lot of companies were slimming down. 2 or 3 of my colleagues had suffered ill health. One even died 15 minutes after getting into work one day, and that was purely by stress. And this was a man that was younger than me. I had all these things going through in my mind, and I was still continuing to do my job. There was no question on me leaving. There was no alternative. I had, I suppose, in those days naively thought I got job security. I could, after all, claim any redundancy pay. Maybe that would be worth 2 years' salary to me. But I was still young and I was still go ahead. What else was there? It was time for me to wise up. What if I lost my job? And these thoughts suddenly started to go through my mind. What if I lost my job? Now, we weren't broke, not in the true sense of the word, but we didn't have any excess money, and I'd work things out. I could pay my electric bills. I could pay for the food and, the car payments on the little car we had for Greta. And we could pay for Nicola and the things that she was needing as she was growing up. I could pay for all those things as long as I still had a job. But if that money suddenly stopped, if I didn't have any salary, let's say for 3 months, then we would be in real financial problems. We didn't have any savings to speak of. Maybe we could work for ourselves, and Greta said we looked at all sorts of things. But the main thing was we didn't have any capital investment. But I now started to apply my mind, apart from my job, to survival. I looked at everything. I looked at jobs in the field that I was in, nothing really suitable, without uprooting ourselves again and putting ourselves at risk in another area, working for yet another company. I looked at every business opportunity that you see in the evening papers. You know the sort of things, they're very mysterious. They don't tell you anything, but you expect to telephone a number and meet some mysterious man somewhere. Certainly I never came across this business when I was looking in those sort of areas, thank goodness. I looked at newspapers, the Sunday newspapers, with all the glamorous appointments in the back of the Observer or whatever newspaper it is. I looked at legal schemes. I even looked at illegal schemes. I sent for this. I telephoned about that. And gradually, Greta could see things were changing. My whole mind was being absorbed by survival. The what if frightened me. The alternative frightened me, very simply because there wasn't one. And again, all of this didn't go unnoticed. Questions were being asked in the House. Not the Houses of Parliament, our house. Greta was asking questions. We started to have a few high-volume discussions. Was my job threatened? No. It's okay. I covered a lot of things up. And I didn't want her to say, I told you so. So I was still defending my job even in those days. But I knew that Greta knew something was wrong, and she knew that I knew that she knew. That's how the mind game was going at home. I realized the elusive dream was becoming even more elusive, whatever that dream was. It was disappearing. And to Greta's credit, she was supportive. We both started to apply our minds to the solution, and that's how we came up with those small businesses that we started and didn't really do much about. I think the point was, to our credit, we were trying at least to do something. And, my father had always taught me, you don't want to have to go cap in hand and take money off the state if you've still got the ability to work and a brain to use to go and, get some money in. You can do it some way. My love of antiques obviously took us into those fields. And I started to think, well, what happened if I would lose my job? What if I was just dumped on the rubbish heap? I started to go to auctions. I even started to have days off. I started to learn about these things, read about these things. And I thought, well, maybe I could generate some money that way as well. But I was still committed to the job, still committed to doing the work that I had been doing for so many years. And then one day, I had the funny phone call. I had that phone call at work from a friend one of the people I'd initially trained, actually. He joined the company from the supermarket business, but he'd now moved on and he was in our London office. And we communicated maybe once, twice a week, and it was normally about business and so forth. And then one day he phoned me and asked me a very important question, but first he got my attention. He suddenly dropped the tone of his voice when he was talking, and he said, Pat, I've got something to talk to you about. And what happens when you drop the tone, or someone drops the tone of their voice, you drop the tone of your voice? He got my attention, I was listening, because I got the message, this is something not connected with work. He told me about an exciting business opportunity he was just exploring and getting involved in, and felt confident it would be the sort of thing that I'd be absolutely interested in. I was very intrigued and asked him for more information, but he just laughed. He said, no, you're at work. I can't tell you much now. Let me ring you back maybe next week and we'll discuss it then. I went home and told Greta, and again she was less than impressed. She was less than impressed not because of the man himself, but because he was associated with my job and work. And this went on for maybe 2 or 3 months, and I'm not suggesting you do this when you contact somebody. Next time the man rang me up, he didn't even mention it, and I was just hanging on to his every word. And just before he hung up on me, I said, "What about that opportunity you spoke about?" And he laughed. He said, "I'll tell you about it sometime. I can't do anything now. It's real busy." He said, "Things are exploding all over the place. We need to get together. I'll get back to you." And I told Greta, and she was even less impressed. Well, you know what those sort of people are like. Went on and on and on, and then one day I got a phone call. And what he said to me in effect was this: "I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste my time. What I've got to say to you is very important. It's so important that I want you to take half a day off work. I can give you 2 or 3 dates that I wish you to take half a day off work, and I want you to take me home, make sure your wife's there, and I want to sit down with both of you to talk about some serious income expansion." He really got my attention by this time. We were 50% sponsored. I didn't even do him a disservice of asking, "Can you tell me more?" I didn't go through the, "Well, I'm not going to have the day off if you don't half day off if you don't tell me what it is," and all the other junk we hear. And the reason I didn't do that was because, to a degree, I trusted him, but also I respected the way he was dealing with me on a business basis. I took the half day off work, which was just after Christmas one year. Greta was there. He came along, he put the board up in the lounge, and the one thing that struck us straight away was that he was excited. He was the sort of guy that just exuded this excitement, bounced off him, and it intrigued me. But as I say, because of the contact, I was halfway sponsored into the business. Few things hooked my attention straight away. The first thing was the long-term income, the 4% income that we know it has today. I was also intrigued to know that the business had been around since 1959. So I knew the business was good. I knew it was a good business because bad businesses don't last that length of time. They don't survive. So I knew it was a business that had survived. So I knew the business also had to work. But the other thing that hooked my interest was his confidence in us. He kept saying to me and to Greta things like, "You'll be good at this. I can see you making a lot of money from this type of business. I've got every confidence that you'll build a very big business with something like this." So he was handing back confidence to us and installing his belief in us. Of course, I, like most people, pretended I understood the business. I still had a lot of pride, and I didn't want him to think I was stupid. But the messages came through loud and clear. The voice inside of me had started to talk again. I was only earning a temporary income. No matter what anybody else thought of my position and the company car I had in those days, my income was only temporary. That income could disappear overnight. Here was something that had been around since '59. The other message coming through loud and clear was that people were setting up long-term secure incomes from this business, good incomes, high incomes, and they were doing it by helping other people, not using people and destroying people like I'd been used to doing for the 10 years I'd been involved with the company I worked for. The incomes were incomes I'd never even imagined possible in my wildest dreams. And the third thing that was talking to me inside was, get wise. People are developing financial independence. People are controlling their own time. People are controlling their own future. You're not. I didn't tell Greta these things, but the voice inside of me was getting my attention as well. But also I had some downsides with the business. Again, the voice inside was niggling me about these. This business was unconventional. You know, I couldn't put it into a box. It wasn't a manufacturing business, it wasn't a retail business. And because it was unconventional, I wasn't sure, you know, whether it was not perhaps a little bit weird. I knew the business worked. And then I got to thinking about people like Coca-Cola and when they first launched that product, and I thought, I wonder what problems they had. We all know what lemonade tastes like and various other drinks that we can buy off the supermarket shelves. But imagine trying to launch Coca-Cola. How on earth do you explain what Coca-Cola tastes like? They must have had some mega problems with that. but they overcame them. So Coca-Cola was just a little bit unconventional when it was first launched. Same as Disney with his dreams about, building the fun parks for adults. People must have thought he was weird and unconventional as well. Not to mention McDonald's producing skinny hamburgers for an American market that loved the big, thick, juicy steak hamburgers. But the second thing that sort of was a bit of a downside was that it wasn't glamorous. It wasn't very imagey. My image of business was the bowler hat, the briefcase, the office, the business meetings, the power struggles. It wasn't traditional in that sense either. The third niggle I had was, why was all this success in the USA? Was this purely an American-type business? And the fourth niggle I had was, it sounds too good to be true. Nice idea, sounds too good to be true. Succeed by only helping other people? That is real flaky. What would my friends think about that? Macho me out there destroying people, and now all of a sudden in a business helping people. So my reactions to that initial exposure to the business was mixed with excitement but also tinged with a little bit of reservation as well. What if I'd missed something? But again, all these things I kept to myself. Our sponsor loaned us various information to give us more background to the business. And I absorbed everything, every tape, every book. I wanted to because I was, wanted more information. I wanted to understand more. I was, I suppose, secretly looking for the catch. And do you know why I was looking for the catch in those days? Just in case my sponsor hadn't spotted the catch. He was a friend. I wanted to perhaps wise him up to this if there was anything wrong with it. But nevertheless, I pursued it and asked questions. Coming from a sort of semi-business background, I did look realistically at the concept of this business, and I knew that in any business, if you really delve into it, you're going to find something that doesn't quite ring true. You won't ever find perfect businesses. I knew also that, based on my background and what I'd been told, that work was involved. And I knew that if I was hypercritical, I'd find faults in anything. But the more I looked, the less I could find wrong with it. Why was the success in the USA? Why was it so successful over there? That thing still couldn't really get into the back of my mind. And then, when I listened to a tape one day, I suddenly realized that their success had been purely based on the very fact that I'd spotted in the first part of the business, that it had been spotted on encouraging, uplifting and motivating others to help themselves. And I began to warm to this idea. I began to see that income could be earned and would be earned in direct proportion to the number of people you could help succeed, as opposed to earning money by using people, or destroying people's dignity with threats and innuendos, or by belittling success or achievement with jealousy and bitterness. Greta and I began to communicate. We had our reasons to do that, and that was our future, and before this we'd never really communicated about anything in any depth. We shared our hopes together, we shared our fears, and we shared our what-ifs. We had excitement, and we had discussions tinged with disappointment as well in those early days. We had our ups, we had our downs, like most people will in most businesses starting new. We had the inevitable no's, as we all get in this business. We had plenty of laughter from people, plenty of smirks, plenty of snide comments. We had plenty of the good advice. We had plenty of the heard it all before. And we had plenty of the seen it, done it, been there. Sure, it hurt, our pride was injured. But you see, of all the people that put us down, put this business down, not one of them, even to this day, has come forward with a better alternative. Not one. The no's became our reason to move this business on, or one of our reasons. We became mad. We became mad at them. and revenge began to figure in my vocabulary. I wanted to get back at the people that had scorned us. One of our early plans in those early days, first plan I did, I showed four school teachers how the business worked, and I was a little naive, a little green. I don't suppose I was that inspiring with them, but you see, they had so much status, two of them just turned their back on me halfway through the plan. That upset me, it upset Greta, but you see, today they're still teaching, they're still moaning about their salaries. You see, revenge is sweet. We had to prove them wrong. We had to wipe the smiles off their faces. I used to drive past my place of employment at night, coming home from plans in Wales, the south coast, wherever I was. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I knew I was going to go back there, maybe at 5 or 6. But you see, I kept thinking, one day I'm going to drive in here. One day I'm going to drive in a big car. One day I'm going to show you what we can do with something like this. And that kept us and me going for a long, long time. The sad thing is, when you do achieve success with the business, you don't need to do that, because you know they know, and they know that you know they know. You see, were those people going to look after Greta if anything happened to me? Were they going to look after Nicola? Were they going to pay our bills? Were they going to make sure they were secure for the rest of their lives? No, they wouldn't. They got all their good advice. They got all their criticism, but they weren't going to do one damn thing to help us. Remember one thing, your critics can either be your destroyers or your motivators. Whatever you do, make them your motivators. Our sponsor worked very efficiently. Within 2 weeks of our first seeing the plan, he'd helped 4 people get in our business, and that formed the base of a business that now is responsible for many millions of turnover, millions of pounds worth of turnover in a year today. And we'll ever be grateful for the opportunity he gave us, and also the common sense he had in following a system and to make this business work and to teach us that system. And that system is very much like the system we have today. And it was the knowledge, and it was with the knowledge that he believed in us, and the knowledge that there was a successful upline in the States that kept us going in the business when other people and other things were trying to pull us down. In those early days, there were functions. One, Greta told you about that, we went just, and thank God we did. And to see other people involved, younger, older, professional, non-professional, gave us more belief. And I'm sure a lot of you have felt that today, that have maybe come here for the first time. Maybe what the speaker said didn't relate, but when you walk in and see many thousands of people around you, it gives you that comforting feeling that you're not out there on your own. You're not the only one sat in that living room seeing people and hearing people talking about dreams and the future. I was still secretly looking for the catch, though. You know, I was looking at everybody at that function. The guy sat next to me eating ham sandwiches. You know, the person passing around the polo mints. I wonder what they do. I wonder where they come from. How long have they been in? But I couldn't find it. The only fault I was beginning to find was self-doubt that occurred many times in the early days, and I'm sure that happens with most people. That self-doubt attacks us all. But as Greta said, a visit to the USA was the true turning point for our business. And we went there as 12% pins, and, you know, we were firmly fixed on a goal of hitting the 21% level.